Tim,
as always.
Yes.
what's your topic?
All right. So we just spent the last, I don't know, million years at VidCon.
Yeah.
And this is our fifth VidCon?
Something like
One
that.
of the two. And we've seen it kind of evolve from being a really weird thing to a much bigger, really weird thing.
Sure.
Now, VidCon's always been interesting to me because there's two extreme sides to
And
it.
explain what VidCon is, yeah.
All right, VidCon is essentially the E3 for YouTube stuff. YouTube stars, YouTube making its own announcements of like new stuff for its platform and all that. But you said something really interesting to me, that it's not so much the E3, it's more the GDC of the YouTube world.
Right. It's a game, which is the Game Developers Conference. And the idea is that people who make content out on their own in these different groups come together to share knowledge and be like, hey, they give panels at VidCon saying like, here's how a better way to monetize. Here's how to use Facebook better. Here are the success strategies we've found.
Right. So they have like panels and seminars.
Exactly.
And
so there's
sessions
this
and stuff.
business side of it, but then there is this fan-driven show floor. Buy a community pass. Come get an autograph from iJustine.
Yeah,
Come
because
see
the
the
stuff
guys
that
from
I
Epic Meal
saw
Time.
looked almost more like Comic-Con or something. It was
Right.
like,
Well, so that's the thing. It's a really unique event in the sense that there's like multiple levels to it, and depending on which pass you can get onto different levels. And they really do have it set up where the bottom floor is community, and it is just I'm going there to scream and fanboy or fangirl out about these little British singer boys. Then the second level is more like here's for the people that are actually making their own content to learn about something. And then the third level is for the much bigger people industry people to learn how to make more money on what they're doing, or to find out what's the next big thing. Like everyone's talking about Snapchat, which is like at this point like a year old and all the kids are using it. But it's like, here's how you should use it for your stuff, or Periscope, or God knows whatever else they're pushing out. But it's interesting because there's this really wide gamut of different types of people there for different reasons. Now, we started there with IGN, which was like we kind of came in at the top level, but we, as kind of funny, were at the bottom. So I feel like over the last couple of years, we've kind of like met in the middle somewhere.
Right.
And weirdly ended up on the top where me and Nick were giving a industry thing. We were giving a panel.
We were given industry thing.
We were giving an industry panel to creators. So we were telling people like how to integrate brands into their content and stuff, which is just ridiculous that people actually cared. We had a packed room.
We did have really a packed room. That was a fascinating thing. Because when we came in at IGN, we came in thinking, and this was largely me as well as everyone else, but came in kind of assuming that we weren't going to. Well, no,
This was largely me.
I came in
and everyone else.
I came in assuming, this is not a compliment for myself, that I knew everything. And what was this VidCon thing going to teach me that I at IGN, being a senior video producer at IGN who had built this giant team and we drove millions of numbers, was going to learn. And it was a very big eye-opening experience because there's a whole other community out there that's not traditional online media. That's not the GameSpots, the IGNs of the world. There are a bunch of individual contributors that have these gigantic audiences that have nothing to do with that and don't want to necessarily be a part of that world. They have their own thing going on. And so that was really eye-opening. So when we went there, first when you talk about evening out, that's how it's sort of been for me, is letting go of all those expectations and that ego of working at a place like IGN and really starting from grassroots and forming our own audience, and then meeting on that level, which I feel like we were for the first time there now, coming there, getting recognized a little bit, but also being seen as creators in that community and not the IGN guys anymore. What's amazing though is there is a very big, like there's a line between those fans and the professionals, and you can see that at the Hilton bar. Which is like there's a bar at the Hilton, which is right by the convention center, and all of the industry goes there if you're over 21 and you have a cocktail and you can meet. But then on the outside of it is everyone that's underage that's just waiting to fanboy out about, like, to see someone and scream real quick.
Well, not just
get
the
their
fans,
audience.
but a lot of the stars are underage, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
there's
very
about 14,
true.
15,
Yeah.
16-year-old kids who have got massive audiences and are actually becoming quite rich doing this.
Yeah.
But even
it's
them
really
though,
crazy.
like they're still in the bar section. Even they might not be getting drinks, but they'll be sitting at the like different tables or just standing around talking to people. Like they know that they're allowed in. It's these people. The people on the outside are the ones that are scared to go in because they feel
They
like
want a
it's, like,
selfie and an autograph.
they just want a selfie and autograph, and they're scared to like kind of breach that thing because they feel like they're not going to be included. They'll be like spotted immediately as like not part of the crowd.
Right.
Even though it's totally not true.
I
No one
wouldn't be
knows who
able to-
anyone
yeah,
is.
I wouldn't be able to spot anyone.
But it's weird because it's like a invisible force field around, and the moment that someone leaves the group, it's just screaming and yelling and just people chasing these guys down, and it's like insanity.
Yeah.
So
it's on one level, I'm like, where are all your parents that are letting
Well,
you
the parents
be
are there, though.
in this hotel till 1 o'clock in the morning, screaming and following these YouTube celebrities up to their rooms? Like, because they'll post when we stayed at the Hilton. they would literally post people on floors, and they would text each other like where people were. They'd figure out what your room was, and they'd like follow YouTube people back to their rooms. Not us, because we're all.
That's not creepy.
It's really weird. I mean, we didn't stay there this year just because the rooms
you
there
were
gotten
harassed.
ridiculous.
I read a story about one of these kids, like a YouTube star, who's like, again, like a teenager basically, but he's got this massive following. I can't remember the name of the kid, but he went there incognito because he wanted to look around and like check things out, but didn't want to be mobbed. But somebody spotted him, and it turned into a scene from like A Hard Day's Night. You know, like looking Beatles are like running from these.
That's really what it is.
I mean, I some of the footage that I've seen. I mean, it really is like nothing I've ever seen since like the Beatles came to America. Like teenage girls, tears streaming, like pulling their hair out. Like that level of like obsessive fandom is insane.
It's really weird because, like I said, this is our 4th or 5th VidCon, and we've seen that every year, and we've just seen the mobs get bigger and bigger. I think this year I didn't see it that much.
No,
the running and the crazy screaming and all that, but I think that's because VidCon is finally kind of
they're getting smarter.
They're getting smarter, and they're
deal
growing
with
and
this
to learn
talent,
how to understand. So their signing process was a lot better this year. So they actually like scheduled a lot more people, and they had a structure to waiting in line to be able to guarantee that these people can meet the people they're looking forward to meeting. And that's kind of what my topic was, is I'm watching these people wait in line to go say hi and like meet and greet these, you know, YouTube celebrities, or they're not even saying YouTube's not even fair, because it's like there's Vine celebrities and Instagram people and Snapchatters now, and like all this. I don't know if they're called Snapchatters, but whatever they are.
There you go.
They're called snappers.
Snappers, yeah.
They're chatters.
And yes, the chat roulette people. It's crazy to me that there's people that would wait for 4 hours to be able to take a picture with someone and say hi. But then I stopped and think about it, and I was like, did I ever do that for people? And then I was like, I did. Like back in the day, I remember my brother was super into WWE, and like when people would come, like we'd wait. I'd bring him and wait in line for hours to meet these wrestlers, and like that didn't seem ridiculous to me, you know. And now I think about it, I'm like,
of course,
that's ridiculous.
They were on TV. It was a big deal to see them.
It's obviously a generational thing, and this is where we start to realize that we're basically turning into our dads. Where you're looking at what teenagers are into and going, I don't get it. When I was a kid in the early 80s, I would watch, I don't know if it was everything here, but in the UK we had a show called The Young Ones, which was kind of a narcic comedy show. I think MTV had it here for a while. And it was like very much at the forefront of like very kind of anarchic, gross out, just silly slapstick comedy. And it was a huge hit on BBC television. And it was very, very popular with like kids of my age, like teenagers. And my dad would look at it and go, I don't get it at all.
Yeah.
And you realize that you eventually become that person looking at the next thing. Because I've got like nieces and nephews that are kind of in that age group, and I look at they don't look at the TV. They're watching YouTube on their iPads. That's their television now, and they show me these characters, these kids that are doing this stuff. What I've noticed as well is if you look at the kind of content that I've been trying to educate myself about this. I did a YouTube show last year with Skybound. I was trying to figure out like who the audience was and trying to learn like how long the show has to be and who the audience is for this thing.
What was that? It's
called Nerd Court. Huh. You were on it.
Oh, that's right. I was on it. Go watch it.
That was an excellent show.
That was actually one of our better episodes.
Damn right.
I think that was one of that is definitely my top 3 favorite things Greg has done. That doesn't have to do with us.
It was good.
Yeah, it was real good.
It was good. People should check out that episode. It was episode 5, Mario versus Sonic.
Yep. Yeah, the Warp Zone.
Nerd Court.
We had.
You did the Mario Brothers Super Show dance routine at the end, which is amazing. Yeah. Anyway, I was talking to someone about this and said, so what kind of content is on there? I said, well, like some of the really popular ones are like the teenage girl who like does makeup tips, or like here's dating tips for girls, and like here's fashion stuff, and here's like celebrity gossip. And what I realized is that this is not necessarily the new television, it's the new teen magazines. Remember when kids used to read like Tiger Beat and stuff like that? Those have kind of gone away, and I think that's what the kids now have instead. But with this added dimension of like some level of interactivity where these YouTube stars can do videos going, hey, I like your comments, whatever. You feel like you can kind of. This is why I think it's so virulent, is that sense that like you kind of know them a little bit, and you're like internet friends with these people, because the two-way communication allows that. Is that people get really, really into it in a way that I think transcends anything we saw in television or any of the old media. So it's nuts. I mean, do I understand it? No, not at all.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's one of those things. Also, the reason a lot of us, or myself included, don't necessarily understand or have a full grasp of it is how quickly it moves. And like I said, when we went there 4 years ago, I kind of had in my brain, I had a firm understanding of what a celebrity or a star was versus what someone on the internet was, right? I'm like, no, these people aren't stars. 4 years ago, I would have told you that. They're not stars. No way, these aren't stars. But then you start to break it down. You're like, well, what does that mean? Well, all of them have a huge audience. All of them are treated like stars when their fans see them, like they want to elevate them to that status, and they're making a lot of money. So,
yes, by any definition,
these guys are every bit as successful and should be sort of seen in that light. And I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it when you said the reason that I think they're seeing it a little bit differently is because of that. You're able to have that conversation with them and feel like they are. There is no barrier really between you and them.
There's an added level of intimacy.
Yeah.
Even with a massive audience that you don't get.
Yeah.
With television. And again, like, the crazy thing is these people are earning real money. I mean, you've got PewDiePie at the top of the, was it like 7.5 million he pulled in last year?
It's ridiculous.
You've got like the girls I mentioned earlier, there's some of these teenage kids that are doing makeup tips.
Yeah, Michelle Phan's making millions.
She has her own makeup line now.
Yeah.
Like, because of course, what I read about VidCon is another big part of it now is these media executives and these agents that smell blood in the water and they want to go and sign these kids up and like they recognize that these are the next big money-making opportunity.
Yeah, we saw that a couple years ago. The panels started going from like how to grow your audience and how to like what monetization means to we started seeing panels of like what does representation mean, and it was like so and so from CAA and so from UTA and so from William Morris, and I was like, oh wow, these people there's a huge push to use these kids for their influence and B as sort of. I mean, I think they're still trying to figure out, but there's a lot of money to be made there. And when there's money to be made, of course, you're seeing all the guys from Hollywood.
Yeah, all these deals suddenly, of course, come out. Like, it doesn't matter how you generate the money. If you can, these people will come out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
I mean, HSBC Bank apparently didn't care that all this money was coming from like Mexican drug cartels. It's money.
Right.
We will take it. And I think to a lesser extent, it's true of people in the entertainment business. They don't necessarily have to understand it in order to package it and monetize it. There's again, we see this all the time. I mean, there was a British YouTube celebrity. I don't remember her name, but it's like a teenage girl who built a huge following. She now has like a best-selling book in the UK. Zoella.
Yeah.
Ghostwritten, but nobody cares. It was so well. This is like, and again, you don't. Here's the thing. Part of the reason why there's a rush to monetize is that nobody really knows how long it's going to last.
Right.
That some of these YouTube celebrities could have very short, lifespans. We now live in a world where one of the dominant forms of media is 6 seconds long. So you want to talk about like the contraction of attention spans and how long you might have in the spotlight before the next cool kid comes along?
But I think that's the thing, though, is like if VidCon's taught us anything, it's that it's not about YouTube. It's about keep continuously adapting and listening to what the new thing is and getting on it before everyone else, understanding it and being creative with it. And a couple of years ago at VidCon, we saw this whole thing Nick's talking about, where it's like representation and all this, and you started to see the beginning of like what happened with all the boy bands and stuff, where it's just this produced thing where people put people together and like made a product out of these people and like kind of sold it that way.
Yeah.
You started seeing a bunch of YouTube networks and channels and shows and whatever and personalities that weren't really personalities. It's not like they started doing YouTube channels. It's I'm going to take this young girl and I'm going to tell her what to say and she's going to do this and like grow that way. And what's interesting now is, I mean, there's a ton of those that just exist and they keep going. But this year I saw a bunch of those people that were introduced a couple years ago and they've now been pretty much saying fuck you and just doing their own thing.
Right.
And it's like they got brought up that way, but then they learned quickly. And I think that's the most interesting part of this is even with all these young kids, they're not only are they getting a lot more money a lot earlier and having a lot more weird responsibilities, they're given the opportunity to think and use all of the tools available to them in such unique, weird ways that they can kind of say, we don't need you. We don't need you to make this for me and tell me which boy band song to put out. Like I can do an indies thing if I wanted to, but with that audience, and they're going to like it.
Yeah, and that's the power of it, right? Is that prior to this, you needed a label or a studio to elevate you as a celebrity, right? And you needed their continual support in order to keep your celebrity. Whereas now, the dangerous thing is if you build up a bunch of people who get massive followings, they don't necessarily need to stay within your organization. They can go out on their own, do their own thing, and still enjoy success and still thrive. And so I think a lot of people are trying to figure out in that ever-changing landscape, like how do we capitalize off people and not drive them out and not let them go, because there's a lot of power to the individual contributor these days.
It's true that it's different, but it's not that different in that I think I don't know if we've really seen this yet, but I suspect that we will, is that, you always hear about the case of the tragic child star. I think there's a whole new generation of that waiting to happen with 14, 15, 16-year-old boys and girls who, just started doing YouTube. And a lot of these kids didn't get in this to become famous. They just did it because it was a hobby.
Right.
Next thing you know, CAA's calling, you've got 100,000 subscribers and there's real money coming in. And, there's book deals, you go to VidCon, you've got girls chasing you down. You can't keep it real and adjust to that. It's a very difficult thing to keep straight in your head. And suddenly this overnight celebrity, and how does that not go bad? And we've seen it ever since the golden age of Hollywood. Child stars that kind of went off the rails because they just weren't properly prepared or properly protected by those around them. And I wonder if there is a new generation.
Well, I think
of that
there already is a new generation that we've seen in the last couple of years, and that's the viral hit. People that just make one video, they get millions of views and they get millions of fans and stuff for that one video, and then nothing after that. Right. And they can't follow up, and they don't have consistent content, or they then put out content and no one cares about it, and everyone's like, oh, just do that again. And, I'm not going to say any names, but you see these people at VidCon, and it's kind of like, oh, man, you just kind of feel bad for them. You're just like, oh, you were...
Justine.
That's different than what Gary's talking about. What Gary's talking about is the famous the two Corys in the 80s, right? Corey Haim.
Yeah,
Corey
I'm talking
Feldman,
about all the money and fame and stuff going to your head, and you basically becoming a dick.
You're 17 years old, and you're going into rehab.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like this is the new version of that, because they made a shit ton of money off of one video, and they think that they're untouchable for that. But it's no, your life changed for that one time, but that money runs out, and then you can't do another hit video, because that's not how the virility of that video worked.
Sure.
That's why I like, what we do at Kind of Funny, because the expectations are real low.
Real low.
Yeah. But
from the title on.
And I like how you sustain that week in, week out.
Yeah, we can't possibly set the expectations any lower.
If we're ever oh man, things are going really well, Kevin, do something, change something. Then we're off the air. There's no sound. Perfect.
But that's what I love about this business coming as a very outsider kind of person, because I will always consider myself a writer first, and I've only been to one VidCon, which was last year's, which was super eye opening for me. That's really the embryonic state of what Kind of Funny ended up becoming, was that 3 days or 4 days we spent in Anaheim, for sure. And it was eye-opening, but it always informs me what I don't know. And that's what I always say, which is that what you don't know is one thing, what you don't know is the other thing. And so I know I don't understand the math behind physics, but I don't know that I need to know this other thing that is really essential to the business. And that's what I really learned at VidCon. In other words, people walk through life thinking that they don't know the things that already exist, and yet I feel like I'm learning something every day about things I didn't even know I had to know, or that were even things that you could know. And so what I'm so fascinated about with our business is that, we kid around, the expectations are low. They're really not. I mean, the expectations are high, actually, because we are largely crowdfunded and all those kinds of things. But that's what I like about it, is that I feel like we're growing slowly and steadily. And like I always say, I'm really concerned about Kind of Funny, or not concerned, but think about Kind of Funny in 5 or 10 years, about what it looks like, and that hopefully we have the wisdom to understand that we have to adapt and have to change, that it's one day not going to be about us if we want this to be a company that is going to exist for a long time. And that, I like being in this world where I don't know much, and I'm learning something about it every day. I think it's kind of fun. It's different, than being a writer, or being, doing another thing where I understand that world a lot better than I understand the ever-changing YouTube world, where maybe I'm at 30 years old, I'm considered somewhat old for this world.
Yeah, but see, I'm kind of 50-50 on that, because you mentioned that every once in a while, but at the same time, I think part of the reason why people enjoy watching us is because they like watching us progress through life and try new things and fail, let's be honest, most of the time. But then when we do enjoy the 1 or 2 successes, they like, sharing those with us. And so our
upcoming Mark Ruffalo Columbo trailer.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Starring Mark Ruffalo.
Kevin put the tweet up.
There you go, Kev. So I don't know. I mean, I'm 50-50 on that too, because I think that this needs to always necessarily... I mean, I want this to be a part of my life and my career forever. This is our business, obviously, but I feel like being able to share it with an ever-growing audience of people who just find it fascinating watching us go through life, I think is a very, very powerful thing. And I don't think that's going to go away necessarily. It might change in how people engage, but I think the idea that people can go out there and find their audience is a very, very powerful thing that's going to be with us for a very long time.
Yeah, but my whole thing with that is, I don't know much about Rooster Teeth, but my image of Rooster Teeth in my mind is something that began and is very different with very different people now. And the core is
the
still,
difference there is the OG guys are still adapting. Like you still see Bernie periscoping every day.
Sure, but what I'm saying is that it's not necessarily about Bernie anymore, right? Now it's about all these other people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'll always be. I mean, we all own a piece of this company. We'll always be around and with it. But I want to have
never getting rid of me.
But I want to have
the cigarettes will do that for me.
The wisdom to say, like, in 10 years, if they're like, you know what, this other guy that you hired, we much rather hear him talk about games, and I'll be like, oh, you don't want. So that's what's best for you as the viewer is for me not to speak anymore. And you want to hear this younger guy, To me, I'm like, I can accept that, that's I think the evolution of the longevity of this business as an entity and not us as individuals. We have to have that wisdom, and I think it's important.
I respect that you can accept that, but let's be perfectly honest. Greg's ego is going to kill that guy a lot. Just right off the bat. There's no way Greg's ego is letting anyone else come into this group that'll talk about games or Oreos.
That's true.
It's true.
But to me, like, that's what I'm excited about is the unknown. Like, I want Kind of Funny to exist. I want Kind of Funny to like exist in perpetuity. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so for it to exist forever, I'm excited to think like, how big are we or how small are we or whatever? What is our power and prestige or lack thereof in 10 years, 20 years? What does the company look like? How many people does it employ? Are any of us on camera anymore? Is Nick too busy doing production? Is Greg now really the CEO of the company? Is Tim kind of like doing strategy? And we have
I'm watching Columbo.
We're watching Columbo. We have a whole new crew of people. I think that's super.
Are you watching the old Columbo or the new Columbo we helped get started?
Don't jinx it.
Both.
You're jinxing it.
It's too late. It's already on. Put the tweet up, Kevin.
So I think it's the unknowns about the world that to Gary's point, like I exist in this world. I'm still quite ignorant of it. I learn something new about it every day. We just learned. I just learned from you guys kind of bringing notes back to me that we've been using Facebook totally wrong and stuff like that. And that was really eye-opening to me. It's like, and again, it's like you don't know until you know, I guess. But like that's what I'm excited about with this world and being in this world is that it's about the adaptation. It's not about, there's nothing certain. Yeah. Everything's unexpected. Yeah. And I think it keeps us on our toes and it keeps us honest and it keeps us humble. And that's the thing that I want when I say that the most about having that wisdom to change and adapt and make it not about you one day is it's humility, to understand that like we are going to identify someone one day, hopefully, if we want to be in this space for more than a decade, if that is going to do this better than we do it. And we should elevate that person. Even if it comes at the sake of me being on camera or Greg being on camera, because that's what's good for the health of the business and that's what's good for the viewer. And that's like what's most important.
And part of what I think is exciting about it for you guys is it's kind of similar to watching video games evolve. It's video games is also a relatively new medium if you think about it, like in the kind of geological time frame of everything. It's if you go into a much more traditional form of media like film or television, it's very, very difficult to innovate. To come into there and do something new because those businesses are built on generation upon generation upon generation of people who have established the rules and will tell you right away, this is how it's done, this is how it's not done, this is what you can and can't do. But this world, people are still figuring out where the boundaries are and what is possible and what you can and can't do. And I think that's really interesting because you've got a lot more freedom to try crazy shit. And again, because there aren't any gatekeepers, because there's just you and your, internet connection to, the YouTube upload server and, enough people out there to keep funding you, fuck everybody else. I think that's part of the fun of it.
Yeah, I mean it is, but it is also challenging, right? And to Colin's point, like you do, whereas I feel like the sort of path to success in the traditional media world is a little bit like there's gatekeepers, but once you kind of break through that, you can understand how the system works. This is an ever-moving, ever-changing target for us. There's, like Colin, you're talking about Facebook. What you just mentioned might be different a year from now or 6 months from now, right? So our success, it behooves us to kind of, that's why I like VidCon, is it's our opportunity to kind of sit for 4 days, check in, and think about these strategies and think about, are we, what was right 6 months ago, is that still right for our business and strategy-wise now? You should go to VidCon. You should check it out.
I do find it fascinating, just purely from like an anthropological, perspective. To be there, like, and it's just amazing. Like, again, the fact that this world exists, it's there, it's massive, but because I'm not the audience for it. Like, again, that whole world really took me by surprise when I realized only through like my younger relatives that this was a huge thing, and I slowly became aware of it. I would be the staying power thing that you mentioned is really interesting. I'd be really fascinated to see, like, if you look at the last 5 years of VidCon and maybe like the next few years, to look at what's the degree of turnover between of who's considered like the big attractions there that year. Like, are there people there that have been established stars for like the last 2-3 years, or is it like there's a new flavor of the month every
it's
VidCon?
insane. It's insane that every year you go, and I'm like, and I'm the YouTube guy of the group where I'm like, I love YouTube, I'm all about this. At this point, all the biggest names I'm seeing, I'm like, I do not know who that is.
Right.
And you just can't keep up with it. But that's the thing, though. It's like that's like trying to keep up with all of TV or all of the movies. Like you can't do that. YouTube, it's not just one thing. It's not just the beauty people. It's beauty people, VFX people, comedy people,
food people.
Like there's just so many different like genres of YouTube video and of Snapchat and of Instagram and of all the different things that there is the people that have been at the top for years, but they're not necessarily the top. There's all like they're not the headliners of VidCon anymore.
Right.
There's like every year it's a different set of headliners, I'd say.
Yeah, it's weird though. It would be interesting. It'll be fascinating watching like Harley, right? Who is one of the bigger names that we know that we actually know. Like you hang out with him, you guys are friends. Watching his presence at the show versus some of these kids that came up so fast, right? Where like a lot of some of these kids came up with like you check in on their channel a year from now, and right now it's at 20,000, and a year from now it could be 1 million. You're like, how the hell did they do that? But they just have that thing that the teenage kids love and find interesting.
Rock and roll.
But I'm wondering, it will be fascinating to watch those guys and see if they continue to do it or do what Gary's talking about, where they make a step this way and try to go, either to traditional TV and kind of burn out fast, versus guys like Harley who have kind of done TV but he smartly continues to build his audience online and his presence online. That's fascinating.
Well, that's his bread and butter, right? And I think that's what's so exciting about it, because I look at the old structure, like even pre-cable structure of NBC and CBS, even before Fox. They were gatekeepers, and it was very vertical, right? And the vertical, I think, even grew when cable came out, and now that instead of 3 or 4 channels, there were 20 or 25 viable channels. And now, what's exciting to me about YouTube, and what I think is it's so fucking profoundly small D democratic, is that it's tumbled the vertical. The tower doesn't exist anymore. It's made it horizontal and stretched it out completely. And so now, like, and it's like a fucking bizarre jigsaw puzzle with very small pieces, that somehow interlock with each other in a way that makes perfect sense. Where we have a relatively small audience compared to a lot of people on YouTube, but we've carved out our niche and can make a living doing it, like Gary was saying, which I think is so exciting that we're doing what would have been impossible without the platform and without broadband internet, I guess. So that's what's so exciting to me about it, is like I like being in this space because it's fun to be on camera and do all these kinds of things, but I like learning about it, and I want to learn enough about the business where I can help run the business one day when we have employees, when we have responsibilities, and maybe people that are making content that is better than our content that we really want to shepherd. And the other thing that I'm always so excited about and interested about is when people bring up names or things people are doing on YouTube not being much of... I exist pretty much only in the YouTube space, maybe in politics somewhat, like so that political kind of slice or whatever. And I hear names about, you hear this guy, I'm like, I have no, and it's not disrespectful, I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. And then I look and I'm like, they have 500,000 Twitter followers and a few million YouTuber. I feel like I find that almost every day.
Yeah.
And that to me shows a profound, again, small D democratic kind of like, it's the free market. YouTube is like the free market just working, but it doesn't mean that the big guys only win at the behest of the small guys failing. It means that everyone can kind of coexist, and I think that's fucking rad.
Right. I know we've gone along with it on the subject, but yeah, I mean that is something that you have to wrap your head around, which is that there is no like winning necessarily, and there is no necessarily end game. Right. It's just grow your audience and just continue to thrive.
Bring them along for the ride.
But I think that's kind of part of the thing that I have trouble wrapping my head around is I'm like, okay, if we hit this certain point, is that when we get to do like mainstream stuff, or do we even worry about mainstream media?
We don't
worry about this is mainstream
but that's hard for me to wrap my head around. Is that like, well, I am old, and to me success is make a movie, or to me success is make a television show.
You're a success right now, Nick. You don't even know it. Look at him, everybody.
Well, I mean, listen
Doesn't
to the way,
even know it.
Listen to the way Gary talked about the possible Columbo reboot, which is like he talked about Netflix, about bringing it to somewhere, or HBO, like something premium.
Right.
I don't feel like, I mean, I'm sure that a lot of writers would love to have their things on traditional TV, but that's not where things are going, and that's. To me, that's a like deep, for instance, having 5 million followers on, or subscribers on YouTube and making some money there, and then deviating into like Hollywood is a fucking huge risk.
Traditional TV is becoming less and less relevant, and I think the idea of becoming a big enough star on YouTube that you can quote unquote graduate to television is really outdated thinking. Like, I don't think you're graduating at all anymore. That's, if anything, a sideways move. And in terms of the audience that you might be trying to reach, by moving to television, there's no guarantee that your teenage audience would even follow you. Like I said, kids don't really watch TV anymore.
Right.
their attention spans are too short. They want to be able to just dial up. Again, just the idea of channel surfing seems so. I mean, even for us, right, we're old enough to remember the old days when the only way to cycle through television stations was to just go and just like get a
Real
1
quick,
second
do you
preview.
remember that?
I do.
Do you?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Okay.
I didn't know if you always had the fucking built-in guide.
I have that.
There was a scene, I can't remember which show it was. It was one, I think it might have been the Goldbergs, or maybe it was Freaks and Geeks. It was like one of the shows that was set.
Sure, set in the
like
back.
one generation or two generations back. And I had such a nostalgic thing, as I remember before even the days of TV remotes. And it was a family sitting, someone will remind me what the show is, I'm sure. It was a family sitting in the living room watching TV. And like the youngest kid in the family, it was his job to sit in front of the TV and change the channel. And the dad would go, no, okay, stick on that channel. And like just and that was how it worked. And now, of course, and then it became a thing where we could like go browse through channel guides and stuff. And now you don't even do that anymore. I very rarely sit in front of my TV screen and watch television. Like I as soon as I sit down, like all my stuff gets piped through the Xbox One, so the TV comes through it, Netflix comes through it, YouTube. I don't even bother to, unless it's something I know is only on TV, like an HBO show or something I want to watch. I don't even bother. I'll go straight to YouTube. I'll go straight to Netflix because it's just so much more fun and easy. And I get that kind of paralysis. You ever do that thing where like you sit in front of Netflix for like an hour and all you do is fucking browse?
That's all
and
I
you
do.
and you're like, just fucking pick something.
Maybe.
And you just,
What about this one? Maybe. Put it in the maybes. You come back like 15 minutes later. Like,
put it on the watch list and maybe I'll come back to it. And this shit never gets watched.
I had the weirdest thing last night happen to me where my girlfriend was watching The Bachelorette, so that was weird. But then the weirdest thing was the commercials came on. And I was like, what the fuck? And it was such a jarring experience that she was watching on TV.
Live?
And
That's weird.
And I was like...
Your girlfriend's weird.
It was weird, man. Because I haven't experienced that. It's been years. It's been years since I've watched TV. Seen anyone watching TV.
If you're smart enough, of course, what you do is you join the show 15, 20 minutes late, so you have enough buffer to eat all the commercials. If you watch it, again, sometimes if it's like a show that... I remember when... the series finale of Breaking Bad was on, and we were like, okay, I'm not leaving anything to chance. I'm watching it dead straight up live with everyone else, so that no one can fuck with me. And then of course there's commercials, and you're like, huh. What am I supposed to do now? Am I supposed to sit and watch these? Like, is that a
so
thing?
Uncomfortable.
Yeah,
like,
it's such a weirdly outdated model.
I had the same thing happen 2 nights ago. I came home, my wife was watching Total Divas. Now, I love Total Divas.
Who doesn't love
I'll be
Total
honest with
Divas?
you. And I love it for a number of reasons. One, it's just
terrible?
good old fashioned TV, and two, the women are just gorgeous. And so my wife's watching it. And
What
she's
is
like,
Total Divas?
It's the reality show on VH1. That's the divas from WWE, the female wrestlers.
follows the female
and like,
wrestlers.
what do they just follow them around?
It's a
And
reality.
they all have,
reality show.
It's totally the fake reality show.
Totally fake.
So
But
it's just like about their like lifestyles.
Yeah, and the fact that John Cena won't marry the one or have a baby.
Right. It's completely make believe. My wife realizes that too, but she still gets sucked into it, as do I, I'll be honest. And it was the same thing where she was watching it, and I kept picking up the remote during commercials and hitting the fast forward and coming to the realization every time that we were live.
Oh, when you hit fast forward and you realize there's nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go.
You can't actually travel forward in time. It's terrifying.
Soul crushing.
Like I watch. There's only a few shows that I watch on TV that come on and I'll watch them religiously. MasterChef is one of those shows. I love that show. And Fox, all Fox on demand stuff, you cannot fast forward it even in
I hate
VOD.
that. I hate
so
that.
like it's like fuck. Like what do you?
Yeah,
like,
and it's always the same fucking commercial over and over and over.
The two. They
Yes.
cycle in them every single
including
time.
like
So
promoting
annoying.
MasterChef, and I'm like, I'm watching MasterChef. Yeah, so that shit's kind of annoying to me. But I agree. I like creating that buffer of removing commercials. It's just the way we we ingest content now. The expectations are different, and the thing that's going to be fucked up is that it's only going to get worse on TV because the money is going to start falling through, and have to have more advertisements, more injection of all of these kinds of things. Shit, you're seeing it with the NFL, who's already fucking out of control, when they were all making them use the Surface tablets, even like during games and stuff like that, and then the announcers using Surface tablets, and all these funny pictures are on Deadspin of them using iPads.
Oh yeah, the iPad
like
propped up behind the Surface. That was good.
That is hilarious.
So I think it's only going to get until it just craters, and then people are like, "This is not."
It'll fold in on itself eventually. You've got services like Netflix and HBO now, which is like done standalone HBO.
So that's what's happening is that because now we have all this technology to skip through shows, we're actually weirdly going back to how television was in the 50s when the commercials were baked right into the show. Like you'd actually have.
Where he would stop and be like, "This is the
Lucky
product I'm
Strike,
using."
or whatever
That's
it was.
exactly what we do on the show every day.
Brought to
Greg's
you
gonna
by
do it soon.
Clorox.
I was gonna say commercials do suck, but you know what doesn't suck? Loot Crate. This episode is brought. This topic is brought to you by Loot Crate. Everyone, head over to lootcrate.com/kindafunny and enter the code kindafunny to save $3 on any new subscription. You know Loot Crate, right?
I do.
Brings you 6 to 8 items a month.
Love it.
Nerdy.
It's a surprise.
Awesome geeky stuff that we like.
Yeah.
For less than $20. Every month, it's guaranteed to be $40 or more worth of items in there. It's curated around a theme. Previous crates have included Star Wars, Walking Dead, all the stuff we love. This month, you know what it is?
I do not know.
Villains.
Oh.
Whether they're
Nice.
terrifying or tragic, something about bad guys and gals is just plain fun. Probably the snazzy outfits, army of henchmen, and the totally relatable, quote, treat yourself to some sweet loot attitude. I didn't write this. Just putting
It
that
sounds
out there.
like something you wrote.
I like
It
it,
does,
though.
I know. Thanks for joining us as we celebrate the darker side with epic items from Marvel and an exclusive DC figure that I will be keeping. Unique wearable. It's put in the crate before. It's each crate, blah, blah. So anyways, if you
Is
guys...
it Calendar Man?
I hope it's Calendar Man. He doesn't get enough credit.
No.
Yeah, I don't. Why
Really
is there not a
doesn't.
desk calendar from Calendar Man? That seems. There you go, Jim Lee. Easy merchandising idea. You know what I mean? I hate that. So if you guys want $3 off your new subscription, head over to lootcrate.com/kindafunny and enter the code kindafunny.
Before we move on to the next topic, last thing I want to say, YouTube is growing so fast that this last year at VidCon, there was a huge deal about Smosh. Like during the keynote, they said this, that Smosh hit 10 million subscribers.
Right, so I was looking at, I saw a thing last night on Netflix, Smosh the movie.
Smosh the
and I guess
movie.
it's these.
Yeah.
Came out last
They have
week.
a movie now. I
They
don't even
do.
know who the fuck they are.
Yeah, well, they were.
They're really nice guys.
They're nice guys. They've been they were. I think that they're the longest running #1 subscribed channel on YouTube. Like if you
So what
count
is
up
their
they're
act?
all the
Like,
time.
what's their angle?
They're two comedy guys. They're just two guys that are funny and they just
Do they
do
just
things.
sit in
They're
front of
best
the
friends.
camera and like? Is
They
it
do
like
sketches.
This or like
It's
what is-
sketches.
Okay, they
mainly
do comedy
sketches.
sketches.
They do a whole bunch of stuff now, but they've been doing it since the very beginning. But they hit 10 million subscribers last year at VidCon. That was a huge deal because it happened like that week, and they were the #1 most subscribed channel. Since then, PewDiePie outpaced them, and PewDiePie's now at 38 million.
Jesus.
So
Subscribers.
since a year, PewDiePie has went beyond Smosh to 38 million.
So you're saying there's 28 million.
Yeah.
So that's like 500,000. That's like 550,000 subscribers a week, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So actually, you know what? Here's what I need to do because I do want to learn. And in the same way that I will provide you with
like
like
where
a
this
top
is
10
going.
Columbos, I would. If one of you guys could provide me with like a curriculum of
Yeah.
like. Here's some like was it Jenna fucking marbles or whatever?
Jenna
like,
fucking marbles.
Jenna
That's
Marbles
what
is
it
awesome.
here's like 10 videos that
Yeah.
you should watch that will give you
To
like,
understand.
This is the landscape.
these should both be
That
forum
would-
posts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do them
That
both.
would
I'm gonna have Nick do this for you.
like the kind
Okay.
of dummies
I'm
guys.
joking.
I'm joking.
All gonna be
YouTube,
Jenna Marbles.
you know who's who and you like
Yeah.
who are the people today?
Oh, yeah, I would love to do that.
Yeah,
We should do that.
that would help me immensely.
Kevin, write a note. We're doing that.
Just put it on
Tim-
the
Tim
Tim
should
the
write it
forums.
down.
We're
I
going
will
to
either-
forums.
I will either-
Kindafunny.com/forums.
I will either learn something from it, or it will be the perfect excuse me to do what I love to do is just like fucking mouth off at the TV.
I
Like,
love that.
What the fuck is this
Yeah.
shit that passes for entertainment? I love to do that too.
Tim sends 10 videos that are all ours.
Yeah. This
Colin.
is what YouTube's all about.
All right, let's. How's that? I don't know how that sounds. Okay,
Sounds fantastic.
good,
Gravy.
good. I love that you don't have to wear podcasts on this. Sorry, headphones
headsets?
on this podcast.
Yeah.
We should, but
I have to do that on Sam. It's just really annoying.
I know.
I feel like as long as you've got like
supposed
one
to.
person wearing them, that's all you need.
Somebody's testing.
What's
Somebody's out
fun
there
is
looking.
that Kevin actually, if anything goes wrong, we just blame it on him anyway. It's his fault.
Well, it's always his fault, yeah.
So
Because he's the only one who has
that's-
any responsibility for the
He's
shit.
the sin eater in this group.
Similar to the Sun Eater that I've been talking about so much lately. Nice, good
so
job.
Wait,
We have time for the
we'll
Sun
talk
Eater.
about this
Yeah,
after.
okay, don't worry
Okay, all right. I read
ready, Kev?
Endgame last night, but I missed one comic, so I was like, that was a really weird ending.
And I told him,
Greg's
was like,
like,
you don't
"You
have the
idiot,
ending,
there's
you need
another
to buy
end."
the ending. I told him
Yeah.
that before he took the books.
He
He's
did.
like, okay.
Wait, you read what?
Batman,
Batman
Endgame.
Endgame.
Oh, that's all you read? You didn't read the other ones leading up to it?
No, should have probably. They reference a lot of the roughly 34 books that came before it. So yeah,
They do.